Hey guys, and welcome to a brand new Broad Street to Britain, a UK Phillies podcast. I hope you all had a great Christmas. We're in that weird time between Christmas and New Year, so we thought, hey, let's get a podcast out there because we've got a little bit to talk about now, and it is me, Dave Shaw, and as ever, I am joined by the one and only Alex Carr from The Good Fight. Alex, how are you, my friend?
Greetings, Dave. Good to be back, as always. Loving Christmas and the holidays, and glad to be talking some baseball. That's the best present I could ever be given.
Absolutely. How was your Christmas, mate?
Oh, it was lovely. Spent a lot of time with the limited family in my pod.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, my brother couldn't come. He's from Missouri, but he couldn't come just because of, trying to be safe, but at least we have it better in the U.S. than you do in the U.K. right now.
Yeah, it was a tough one.
I hope you guys are. Yeah, I hope you guys.
It was a good one. It was
positive.
It was as good as Christmas can be, but the fact that nobody can travel, nobody can see anybody, but
yeah, that's rough.
A lot of FaceTiming.
Yep, I did a whole Zoom call with my family in the UK. We had a whole Zoom call. It was great.
Yeah, it's now the weather's just started snowing and it's gone really weird weather for where we live at the moment. We're going for a bit of a storm, so it's giving that extra wintry feel to it at the moment. Hopefully you guys listening and watching had a great Christmas as well. It's great to see a lot of you messaging me and seeing on Twitter. You've got your Phillies merchandise. Great.
Yeah, Dave, that's been kicking butt. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I don't make any money out of this, by the way. This is not a profit thing or anything like that. It is all done by the great guys at Silver FX, Andy Turner. The website is silverfx.co.uk, and then look for the categories and you'll see Phillies UK. They do quite a few other UK accounts as well, NFL, hockey, as well as baseball, but they do a fantastic job and they ship worldwide, guys. So if you want to get any UK Phillies merch in, hop on the website, and if there's any sales on, I'll put it on their social media. Look out for that. But yeah, fantastic. It's amazing to see so many people repping the merch, which is awesome. So thank you very much, guys. Right, Alex, the Phillies have been a little bit busy this month. Let's start at the top. Let's start with, and I want your initial reaction to before this last week happened, when it was just Dave Dombrowski. And that's it. Nothing that's happened last week. Your initial reaction?
My initial reaction wasn't great. I can't lie. It wasn't.
Many weren't, to be honest.
It wasn't extraordinarily positive. And it still isn't exactly. I think Dave Dombrowski is a very smart man, very good baseball mind. He has obviously won before, and he's brought a winner everywhere he's gone. However, I'm somebody who really, really values sustained success when it comes to baseball. A lot of people disagree with me here, and that's okay. I prefer a team that is sustainably playing well to a team that wins one championship and then explodes, as so many of Dave Dombrowski's teams have. However, I sat on it a little bit. I kind of let it ferment in my body and in my brain. And I don't necessarily mind it as much as I did. I was in love with the 2010s Tigers teams. Ian Kinsler, Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, just this, and obviously that rotation of Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Rick Porcello. I'm missing it. David Price. I'm missing one really big name there. But I mean, I loved that team, or those teams from like 2010 to 2015. They were just so much fun to watch. And they had some bad luck here and there, lost some guys to injuries, and, just underperformed a lot. But they were really, really fun to watch, especially in the offseason, because they went out and they grabbed anyone they could. I mean, they had Doug Fister at a time. They had Anibal Sanchez when he was amazing. They just had everybody. So they were super fun to watch. And Dave Dombrowski, of course, was the man behind the mask in that operation. So I really, really hope he can bring something like that here. I really hope it doesn't come at the cost of our entire farm system. because unlike many, I actually really love this farm system and I love what they've built. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of boom and bust talent in there, but it's still really good. And I just know that if they give away a player that then goes on to, becomes the next big thing, they're going to get absolutely ragged for it. And that's,
As,
because we're
as you've seen
Philadelphia.
already with the Marlins with Sixto Sanchez, it's not taken long.
Doesn't even come close to what could happen. And I mean, everybody knew that Sixto was great. Comes with risks, still comes with a lot of risks, and got really figured out at the end of the 2020 season.
He did, yeah.
But if the Phillies do re-sign JT Realmuto to an extension, which I still think they will, I have said it time and time again on this podcast.
We'll get to that shortly, Alex. I've got that lined up, but
I do think it's a bit early to say that Sixto is, an absolute steal. But yes, I know.
But in the press conference, because he's renowned, the people who don't know Dave Dombrowski, 64 years old, 2 World Series winners, 97 with the Marlins, 2018 with the Red Sox, also got to the World Series with the Tigers, as Alex was saying, in 2012, and previous to that, 2006. It's a 4 years. We're expecting 4 years before he goes to Nashville and tries to bring Major League Baseball to Nashville. His quotes in the press conference were interesting. No, he said, "This is a retool, not a rebuild," which he's right. It's not a total rebuild. We've already made our moves in the back room now. We've got key pieces in place. He also said, which what grabbed me, we want to win, but also you don't want to just do things to sacrifice your long-term goals unless you're a championship caliber club. So it means it's a little bit reassuring because we're not really a championship caliber club like the Dodgers. So I don't think he is going to sort of sacrifice the farm for short-term success. I think it's going to be, not a full rebuild, but a retool. And he's got some now. He's got Sam Fold now behind him, who he said perfectly complements him. And I'm a little bit more positive than I was in this last week.
Yeah, I definitely am too. I think that it's especially encouraging for me when we talk about a retool, because that's what good teams do. Retooling is a consistent thing that many teams do. We're seeing it with the Rays right now. The Rays just traded Blake Snell at his peak value for an absolute haul. And while I don't think the Phillies will do that with Aaron Nola, it's important to recognize when you have a replaceable asset that can garner you some really, really important future pieces. It's important to sell high on these kinds of players. And I'm talking about primarily maybe Gene Segura, who does have a full no trade clause, but, is owed $14.5 million over 3 more years. Anyway.
Yeah.
But, who just came off of an absolutely brilliant defensive season. I mean, he was phenomenal. And also, showed some promise with the bat, as he always has. But, it's about selling that kind of guy. It's about maybe if you get the right package, selling Rhys Hoskins. I love Rhys Hoskins. I adore him as a leader, as a player, as a human being. He's awesome. But if you get the right package offer for a first baseman with power that is so easily replaceable, you take that. Now, I don't think they will get that kind of offer because we just saw what the Nationals gave up for Josh Bell. And while in Nationals terms, giving up your 3rd and 6th ranked prospect might, be somewhat significant, their 3rd and 6th ranked prospect are like the 10th and 15th of the Phillies. I mean, their farm system is, if you think the Phillies farm system is bad, you got to take a look at that Nationals farm system. It is horrible. Anyway, I digress. Retooling is important. It's what allows you to build sustained success. And I think also what Dombrowski was probably talking about more in that sense was he was talking about retooling the front office. I think, they're not cleaning house so that they can get started for another rebuild like they did when they hired Matt Klentak.
Yeah.
They're more, bringing in a whole bunch of it's a change of scenery. And they're giving the front office a whole new look. And I honestly really like that. I love the hiring of Sam Fold. I think he is just absolutely the perfect counterpart, like you mentioned, for somebody like Dave Dombrowski, especially because, I mean, Sam Fold, from the moment he joined this organization, was trying to be lured away by other clubs.
Yeah,
He
the
was a
A's,
finalist
the
for
A's were
managerial
one.
jobs. A's, Red Sox, the Rays, lots of really good, smart teams were trying to lure Sam Fold away. And any team in baseball wants a guy like him, really smart, able to not just spot the holes in guys' swings or their mechanics, but to be able to relay that information in a consistent and digestible way is so important. And he does that perfectly.
Yeah,
and what you now have, go ahead.
I was going to say, what comes across to me from what I've been reading is that he has, wherein before we've had the information, the analytics, and not know how to use it, he's a guy who seems to know how to use the information given to him to give to Dombrowski, who's quite an old school manager. And Dombrowski said he's open to someone to challenge him, someone to give him that aspect of it and put their two skill sets together to mold one, hopefully, very successful baseball team. And it has so much potential.
Yeah, that's what you've got here. I mean, you are looking at a guy who has been on everyone's radar in Sam Fold. Like, everybody knew that this guy was the next up and coming, like, if not executive, like managerial candidate. But I think he's better as an executive. I really do. I think that it's better to have the guy that can relay the information properly and kind of guide your kind of give you a compass to who you should be looking at and who analytically is the next best choice for, your based on your ballpark, based on your team composition, things like that. It's better to have him in the front office than in the manager's seat where, he could relay that information on the field, but it's kind of not utilizing his full skill set. And I think that you're looking at now a 39-year-old and a 64-year-old who are going to feed off of each other and do some pretty great things. I really do think that this front office matchup is really solid. And I'm fully prepared to eat my words on that. If things go downhill, I will take full responsibility for what I just said. But I do think this front office composition is one that is built for success in the future. It's more Rays like or like Padres like than they were with the hiring of Matt Klentak and having Andy McPhail as his kind of influence.
For sure.
Now they're letting the guy that's in the driver's seat, they're letting him do the mentoring instead of letting the guy in the driver's seat be the mentee, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I know that Sam Fold will learn a lot from Dave Dombrowski. Like they're saying that in 4 years, Sam Fold could be the man ready to step into Dave when he leaves in. And of course, Dave will be 68 by then as well. So yeah, he'll.
And another important thing, if I may,
go on.
You have to recognize now that the Phillies have 6 or 7 or 8 former players on staff. Like accomplished major league players on staff as coaches now. That makes, negotiations and, trying to convince guys to come play for them makes it a lot easier. You've got Joe Girardi, you've got Sam Fold, you've got, Caleb Cotham as a pitching coach. I mean, you've got all these former players, all these guys that, they know exactly what these other young players are going through. I mean, Caleb Cotham is 33. Sam Fold is 39. Like, these guys, they're not like, they were major leaguers back in the day. No, they were major leaguers 5 years ago. Like, these are guys that can
modern major leaguers.
Way modern. And these are guys that were really focused on the analytic sides of things. They were right at the beginning, of the analytic era, which was like 2015. So they know not only what they're talking about, but they know what these players are going through. They know that, analytics are becoming so important in this game. They know that, what it's like negotiating now when it comes to contracts, because they will take the smallest little inconsistency in your stat line and use it to leverage you for money. They know that. So it's a really big deal that they have these guys with strong relation skills sitting in the front office now. And not to mention they have a guy like Dave Dombrowski, who is friends with every single agent known to man, like who has lunch casually with Scott Boras, who has, who gets phone calls from agents welcoming him to, back to the major leagues. It's a big deal.
Absolutely.
So while
Sorry, it feels like an upgrade already on what we've had. Like Matt McPhail. Now we've got Dombrowski and Sam Fold. And Dombrowski said earlier in the month he wasn't sure if he was even going to have a GM. So Sam Fold must have made a hell of an impression on him in a couple of weeks. For all of a sudden, Dave Dombrowski going, yeah, you're my man. I want you.
That was a big deal for me when I was, digesting everything, because I was fully prepared not to have a general manager, with the Phillies this year. And I think that a lot of people expected that hire wouldn't come until next year. And when I saw my immediate reaction, my gut reaction, I got the notification on Twitter from Jim Salisbury. I hadn't heard a single thing about this. Obviously, nobody does. It's the Phillies. And I got that notification, and my immediate gut reaction, I tweeted it. It was like, oh my goodness. Like, I was so excited because, number one, it means you're not losing Sam Fold. And number two, it means that you have a young, analytically inclined, up-and-coming GM, former player, like really smart man in your general manager seat. And when Dave Dombrowski does choose to move on, or who knows, he might get fired 2 years from now, but when he does choose to move on, you're going to have a guy that is ready to step into the general manager seat full time, like take the wheel, which is really, really exciting. So that is definitely one thing to be excited about as a Phillies fan in the very minimal amounts of things you have to be excited about.
Absolutely. And then we've got Jorge Velandia, who I don't know too much about. He's 45 years old. He'll be the assistant to Sam. And then, of course, Terry Ryan, who will be the assistant to the GM as well, Sam Fold. Alex, if you could, if the people who don't know, like me, I'm not so up together with Jorge and Terry. So if you could give us a bit of info and background on those two.
Yeah, Jorge's been in the organization for a little bit, 6-year veteran, I believe. Can't remember. But he was a player. Again, you've got another player in the front office. Not much to be said other than he is one of those guys that you're definitely going to look to when it comes to international free agents, when it comes to, the Phillies already have, in my opinion, one of the best guys in the biz in Sal Gostinelli as, an international scout. But now they have an assistant to the GM who is really well-versed in the international market as well. Definitely going to help with, relationships on that end. So very excited. He's been in the organization for 2 or 3 years. Can't remember, but he is,
from what I've heard, he's a very well-respected and very nice guy as well.
Yes,
very well respected.
He's very, very kind. He's very, and he's very professional. I mean, you are looking at a guy that is ready for this kind of task. And as for Terry's just a really wonderful human being. Been in the Phillies organization for a while now. Just wonderful human being. Very smart. Not as analytically inclined. A little bit more old school, but now you kind of have that balance. You have Jorge, who's more analytically inclined, and in the international market, definitely that is his expertise. And then you have Terry, who's a little bit more old school, going to balance it out on Dombrowski's end. But overall, 2 really excellent promotions. Really, really, really excited to see what the new front office configuration.
It looks like to me that as if the Phillies are covering all bases here, aren't they?
They are. Well, I mean, it's not like they didn't have these bases covered before. Well, I guess. I mean, they did and they didn't. I mean, you look at who they had prior. Ned Rice. Ned Rice. Very, very.
Is he still in? Do we know what's happened to Ned Rice?
We actually don't. We don't know. It's unclear at the moment. I'm assuming he'll stay on as either a special assistant or as a standard assistant to the GM.
And even Clintack, what's he doing?
That he's
just getting paid, and
he actually, Dombrowski said that he is a consultant. He labeled him as a consultant. He's someone who you can consult. So that's more.
So he isn't part of the everyday running
assistant. Then. More of a special assistant role.
Keep
or that's what it seems. I don't really know. But it definitely they had these bases covered before, but they have really shored it up, and they've made it a more collaborative process than it
Yeah.
was, or that's what it feels like to me. Dombrowski will ultimately be making, the big decisions, it feels like. And I don't know if he actually will be reporting to Middleton or not, but God, I hope not. But, he'll be making the big decisions, but he's got a lot of resources around him that he can use to kind of help make his decisions more informed.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's really exciting. I'm very, very excited
Yeah,
about the direction they chose to go.
yeah, it is. It's just nice to have some direction, because up until
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, it felt like we were just in the off season, just
They
I
were
don't know.
drifting,
It
man.
felt like we weren't going anywhere. We were drifting. We'd lost JT, Clentac and McPhail had gone. We got Dombrowski,
Well,
and where we were sort of floating. Where were we going to go? And then all of a sudden, bang! Sam Fold, Verlander, Terry Ryan, all promoted. We have a direction. We have a new direction, an exciting direction. And what for you is their first? What have they got to tackle first? Obviously, the bullpen is a big priority. JT is a big priority. McCann going to the Mets. Well, hello. That was one of JT's agents that he thought he was going to go there.
I have to tell you, I think I was very critical of the way that the Phillies handled the JT situation. But as things currently stand, I think they read the room so perfectly. If they end up signing him now, I think they read the room really well. I tweeted something about this earlier, but coming into the offseason, there were a few primary suitors for JT. You had the Mets, obviously. That seemed like a match made in heaven. They went for James McCann for whatever reason. I really could not tell. I think James McCann is not a good baseball player. Not that he's not good. I think that he is less good than people think he is, because the sample size is so small of his actual solid performance. He also is not a very good defender. And they signed him to a 4-year deal. That's pretty important. So I'm very underwhelmed and confused by that move. I really did not want the Phillies to be in on him. I don't think he's all that impressive. So that was confusing to me. The Astros, who signed Jason Castro, and so that probably means, because they have Martin Maldonado and Jason Castro, I guess they haven't officially done it yet. But it was rumored like 4 days ago that said they're very, very close to a deal. I don't know. So now they're pretty safely out of the running, both the Mets and the Astros. You got the Blue Jays, who I personally think are the favorites for George Springer. I'm not, I don't have any source on that, but it's just my personal inkling. I know there's a lot of buzz about the Mets and George Springer. If he does go to the Mets, more power to them. But the Blue Jays also have, a pretty complete catching situation in Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk. They've got two pretty decent catchers that they can platoon. They also have Reese McGuire, who got into some personal trouble last year, which was weird. I don't know if you heard that story, Dave. If you've not heard look it up. Oh, I'm not going to mention it on the podcast. You'd have to make it an explicit version. Anyway, so they've got three options. I don't think I see them spending, a ton of money on a catcher. They do need a bat, but I don't think I see them more as like a fit for a Nelson Cruz type or somebody like that, like a bigger bat than JT. So that'll be really interesting to see where they pivot from if they do lose out on George Springer. But for now, they're still in the mix, I guess. You have the Angels, who definitely need a catcher, but need a lot more help in the rotation. So I think they're going to land Trevor Bauer. So that's, probably takes both of those guys out of the running. And then, you've got the fringe guys. You've got the Marlins. You've got the Rays. But there's no way the Rays, who just traded Blake Snell, are going to spend $25 million on a catcher. There's no way the Marlins. I don't think the Marlins do it. I think it would be serendipitous, but I don't think the Marlins pull the trigger on that. Although they do lack some catching depth. But yeah, I think right now JT Realmuto is falling into the Phillies' lap. And I was really critical of how they pursued him, but if they end up signing him, I will eat my words there. I was pretty confident they'd sign him in the end. I didn't think this is how it would go, but I was pretty confident they would sign him. They really played it well.
JT's agent rang him, didn't he, to congratulate obviously
Yeah.
Dombrowski on getting the role, and then Dombrowski said, "We're for another hook out there. We're highly interested. We want him
Yep.
back." And I don't think it'd be wise for JT to leave it too long before spring training, because catchers need spring training. They need to get their eye in.
Oh yeah.
It
They're the first to
isn't
report.
like a pitcher who you sometimes see pitchers in free agency not get picked up till after the season started, whereas a catcher, they need a spring training behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think he'll leave it too long. I think there will be a resolution, probably, not soon, but in the next month or so, because his market really is limited. And I think his agents have now realized that, he's not getting the $200 million deal that they so badly wanted him to get. He probably will set the AAV record for a catcher, but I think he'll get closer to Yasmani Grandal money than he will get, an 8-year, $25 million contract. So, it's going to be interesting to see what that number ends up being. I think that if the Phillies do end up with him, they played it really well. And, obviously having him back, I don't think having him back is the most necessary thing in the world. I know I'm going to get like a lot of flack for that.
Yeah, you are.
It's not necessary in terms of like the offense. Like he doesn't exactly slot into the offense perfectly because he's not a 5-hole hitter, but that's where he'd slot in this lineup.
Yeah.
He's not. He's more of like a 2 or a 6-hole hitter. But so it's not necessary from like an offensive standpoint, but it is absolutely necessary from a fan base standpoint, from a teammate, from a chemistry standpoint, from a pitching rotation and bullpen, standpoint, because no other catcher aside from Andrew Knapp knows this rotation at all. So, it's necessary from every other avenue.
And even a Bryce Harper situation, because I don't want to.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I mean by chemistry.
Yeah,
I mean it is absolutely necessary in terms of like a clubhouse chemistry kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just not the most necessary move offensively or long term necessarily, because the Phillies, the one thing that they do so well is develop catching. I mean, they have like 5 catchers in their top 20 or top 30 prospects, and that is just like, so unusual. It's just such an unusual field of depth. But, I mean, from every other angle, it makes so much sense. And he's worth the money. He really is, especially
Absolutely.
if you can get him on a 4 to 5 year deal. I think that ultimately ends up being a very fair acquisition. Also, I would just hate for them to look so utterly stupid after trading Sixto Sanchez for 2 years.
Yeah, there is that side of it as well. Yeah. Questions
But
from social
I've
media?
been known to give them too much credit, so
It's true. Yeah, you can't win, Alex. You can't win.
No, I can't. But that's okay. It's the job.
On Twitter, Maddie1Iron says, "Who do you think the Phillies fill out their starting rotation with? Question mark. Hamels reunion? Question mark. Carlos Rodon is another low-cost, high-ceiling option. What do you reckon, Alex?"
I like both of those options. I think Cole is probably like the biggest fallback right now. I would be shocked to see him get anywhere above like a $4 million deal. This market is really vast and a lot of guys are getting overpaid, but Cole has like nearly no upside. He's 39 years old. I mean, he didn't really pitch at all last year. It's a huge risk. It's a very big risk. And, even if he does come back, he's an inning eater at best.
Yeah.
However, I love Carlos Rodon. I think that is a great idea. But he would not be my first choice only because of injury concern and just overall unknowingness.
Who would be your first choice?
My first choice personally in free agency is Garrett Richards, who is likely to be coveted by the Phillies because he's got spin rates galore on every single one of his pitches and he's got velocity. And he's also one of those guys that if he doesn't work in the rotation, can move to the bullpen, which I think is actually really important in this scenario. Because the Phillies do have, 3 of their 4 rotation spots so fully anchored in Zach Eflin, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Nola. and then Spencer Howard is going to factor into the rotation. The question just is when, because they might want to start him in AAA. I have a lot of people that say that they are definitely starting with him on the opening day roster. I really don't know. But then that fifth spot is like a Velasquez-ish placeholder. But I think that, I do think BB is a fine option, kind of. I more see him probably getting traded and then, them signing somebody else. And I think Garrett Richards is the perfect target. He's got velocity, huge upside, great stuff, spin rates. And it's just a super high ceiling arm, even though he is 33. There's a lot of ceiling left because he's been so low mileage throughout his entire career because he just keeps getting hurt. But I think, worst comes to worst, the Phillies have some prospects that are ready to go. Damon Jones, Adonis Medina is probably, not far off. Spencer Howard again. It's not going to be like they're throwing Cole Irvin up again to start a couple games. It's not like that anymore. Might not feel like it, but we're 2 years separated from, when they had Cole Irvin still starting games and things like that. So it's gonna be interesting.
I saw Pirates getting interest from Joe Musgrove. Do you think the Phillies are one of those? Do you think?
I hope so.
Do you think?
I think the price tag's probably really steep, just given the return for Blake Snell. I read something, I think it was from Robert Murray, that said, the asking price for Musgrove is similar to that of Snell. I think that's ridiculous. Definitely not pulling the trigger if that's the case. But I mean, if he is affordable, you saw what the Pirates got for Josh Bell. I mean, that return is really underwhelming. If he is affordable, I would absolutely kill to see Joe Musgrove in a Phillies uniform. He is owed like $3.4 million this year. His peripherals are absolutely unreal. They have been for 2 years. He's a very well arsenaled and composed pitcher. So he would be my first choice above anything if he's affordable. Other than that, really like Jamison Tyone as well of the Pirates. He's probably not going to be back till June, but I think he would be an awesome buy low option. So whichever way that goes, I would love to see the Phillies buy into one of the Pirates starters. That would be pretty cool.
And while we're on the subject of pitchers, Dave, the Phillies fan, says, how much of a role will Connor Brogdon play in this year's bullpen?
Good question. Connor was so outstanding last year that I don't see a scenario in which he doesn't start on the major league roster this year.
He's one of the bright spots, wasn't he, of last year?
Oh, he was absolutely. I mean, and I got made fun of a lot when he came up against the Red Sox and absolutely stunk. Like, people were like, weren't you saying that he was going to be, the next big relief arm for the Phillies? Like, what's wrong with you? Well, would you look at that? But I think enough tooting my own horn. I think he definitely will play a big role. Not so much as a closer or setup man, not yet at least. I mean, if he goes on a major role, which he very well could, I mean, then I think you're looking at a guy that could be your potential future closer. But right now, I think he's going to be more of one of those high leverage middle relief kind of guys.
Yeah.
I'm really, really excited to see what he has to bring in this next year. Same with Jojo Romero. I think they both will have pretty prominent roles in this bullpen, just because, they can't go out and spend $40 million on the bullpen. That's just not going to happen. So I definitely am excited to see what some of these guys that showed some promise last year, I'm excited to see what they do. That'll be really fun.
Who from the farm do you think we could see come up in there? Because it is going to be tough to completely rebuild a bullpen in 1 year. And
totally.
No doubt we are going to see some more youngsters going to have to come through and eat some innings. Who do you think could be the next couple to make their way through that we haven't seen yet?
I think the easy answer is, if you're looking for like a rotation piece, Adonis Medina, 100%. He has shown really, really solid. I mean, his one start in the major leagues last year, had some command issues, had some trouble spotting his secondaries, but I mean, he looked pretty good.
Did he start rough and then get better as it went on?
He did, yeah. And he was. The important part is he was sitting 91 and 95. Mm-hmm. That's a really good thing to see. And also, with Caleb Cotham and the emphasis on drive line, I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more velocity out of him, which would be pretty crazy. If Adonis Medina can find more velocity, you're looking at like a 2 to 3, not a 4 to 5.
Nice.
So fingers crossed, but I have seen way too many videos of way too many Phillies prospects. I talk a lot to the minor league pitching coordinators and the assistant minor league pitching coordinators of the Phillies, and I get sent videos all the time of guys like David Parkinson, who's like a soft tossing lefty, who sits like 91 to 93, throwing 97. Like
Nice.
From what I've seen, those guys are working wonders. So I think, it's going to be really interesting when we get the minor leagues back to see where these Phillies prospects are in terms of their development. Anyway, Adonis Medina would be the first starting rotation guy I'd look at. For the bullpen, Damon Jones, 100%. There was a video circulating, a month ago of him hitting 99. He just has the most wicked slider and an absolutely dominant fastball already, with it sitting at like 96. So that's a big name to watch. Kyle Doey, absolutely filthy stuff. Needs to work on the control, but just utterly filthy. Both of them are lefties. And then Ramon Rosso, who we saw last year, is probably getting stretched out as a starter right now. He was a starter in Winter League ball, but he was excellent in Winter League ball. He had, up until his final start, had only given up 1 earned run. He had walked 5 batters, and struck out somewhere around 20, 25 maybe. So, I mean, he was really effective in Winter League ball. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of him, probably out of more of a rotation role, which I'm actually excited about. So, because he showed promise in that. Go ahead.
I'll say all these guys that you've mentioned, we should see this spring. We have a regular
absolutely.
spring training. We should see these guys, shouldn't we?
Actually, a little bit of maybe breaking news, or at least it's not publicly known yet. From what I know, there is actually going to be a bit of a separation in spring training this year. Apparently, it's going major leaguers and AAA are doing a spring training together. Then it's going AA, then A affiliates is what I believe I was told. So I'm not sure if that's finalized yet. It's just a little bit of a thing that I was slipped earlier today. But yeah, to prevent, risk of infection or anything like that. And vaccines will definitely change a lot of this. So it's definitely not finalized because we don't even know anything about vaccines right now. But that is so far what it seems like is being tossed around. So we should see many of those guys, but maybe not all of them.
Interesting. I like spring mainly for seeing the pitches coming through because you can tell more by the pitches, and then because the position players just want to, after the first week they're done and ready for the season, but the pitching I always find interesting to watch. I really do enjoy it in that aspect.
I agree.
Jim McElhatton says we've sort of covered this. Who's Dombrowski going to sign first? Is it going to be JT, or do we think it's going to be a bullpen piece?
I think it should be JT. I think JT is the big domino to fall because if they don't get JT, then they have a lot of other, they have a lot more money to reallocate.
Yeah.
Or they might choose not to reallocate that money, which would be sad. But yeah, I think JT is the first big domino to fall. However, they might jump on somebody before that if a market is moving particularly fast. Overall, I don't know if you wanted me to touch on, who I think they should sign in free agency.
Yeah, go on.
Dave.
Yeah, because not many people know the free agency market at the moment, and it's pretty slow until the last couple of days.
It's very slow. But overall, the needs that they need addressed pretty much are like back-end starting pitcher. They need at least 2 or 3 bullpen pieces. I mean, they just need it. They need a center fielder. If they go the offseason without addressing that hole, it might be pretty disastrous. I love Adam Hazley as much as the next guy, but that could be a problem.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, they need a catcher, obviously, whether that be a backup or that be JT. And then they need a couple bench bats. So that's where things get really interesting. For me, my personal, I was going to save this for like a YouTube video or something, but I guess, Dave, I'll give it to you. My personal wish list, my Christmas list. I would like Garrett Richards as a starting pitcher if we're going all free agency.
Yeah,
Garrett Richards, starting pitcher. I would love Brad Hand. That would just be the dream. I've tweeted incessantly about him.
I've seen.
There
Yeah.
is no better.
Yeah.
There's no better league for him than the National League East. With some of the toughest left-handed hitters. Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, Michael Conforto. The list goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, they need a lefty get-out guy, and Brad Hand is the best one in baseball. As well as that, I would like to see them sign. I don't want them to sign Liam Hendricks. I think Liam Hendricks is a great pitcher. He'll be good for another couple of years, but that's too much money for me. We saw how that went with Dave Robertson. Love D-Rob, but that was not good. So I think I'd rather spread the wealth a little bit. I think Trevor Rosenthal makes a lot of sense. Guy that just guns 102 miles an hour. It was really, really good last year. He did play for the Cardinals at one point, but no, he was the guy that got traded to the Padres from the Royals. Just throws absolute gas, and was really good last year. Was really, really good. Really excited for him that he was able to come back and do that. And then, another veteran bullpen arm. I would like somebody like Keone Kela, Sean Doolittle maybe. There's a whole bunch, but my two big wants are pretty much Brad Hand and either of Blake Trinan or Trevor Rosenthal. And then moving on to a center fielder, I want Jackie Bradley Jr. I know Kevin Kiermaier is being thrown out in trade talks now. They're basically two of the same player, but one of them costs you prospects or not prospects, but like probably something and cash to get, while the other one just costs you cash. And I think JBJ.
Would you send Hazley or Quinn the other way?
Not Hazley. I don't think Quinn would get it done. It would probably just be a fringe prospect. If the Phillies are taking on the whole contract, that is. If Phillies don't want to eat all the money, which would be a mistake, but if they don't want to eat all the money, then they'd probably have to send something of semi-significance back. But I think that they can get away with sending a fringe prospect to the Rays, along with maybe Roman Quinn, perhaps, or something like that. And then they'll probably receive Kiermaier and a bullpen arm. But the extent of that bullpen arm would be, depending on what they gave up in return. Yeah. So depends. But I'm fine with either of the two. I would prefer Jackie Bradley Jr. just because I think he has more offensive potential as like kind of a bigger bat in the lineup and a short porch. And as a lefty batsman, short porch in right field always helps. On top, and I think he will do pretty well outside of a very strangely dimensioned Boston Red Sox ballpark outside of Fenway. Because you got Pesky's pole on one side and then the monster on the other.
Yeah, it's one of the most bizarre ballparks in the MLB in terms of dimensions. Do you think having Dave Dombrowski could help that? Get Jackie
Absolutely.
Bradley here?
I think that would be the biggest reason why they are more favored for Jackie Bradley than they are for Kevin Kiermaier. Is that, Dombrowski loves Jackie Bradley Jr. And he's a great human being. Really great player. It would be fun to see him and Kutch paired up together. Two very emphatic, guys just going at it in the outfield. So I'm very excited about that. I think that could be a really big ad potentially. Obviously for catcher. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what about the infield with, of course, Didi gone and looking like he's not going to come back either, which is a bit sad actually. I'm a bit gutted not going to see him next year.
Yeah, it is sad. He's definitely not coming back. I don't think, they would have not extended him a qualifying offer and then gone on to extend him a 3 or 4 year contract. Like, that's just not happening. It's just not happening. And I think that's the right move. I don't think not extending him the qualifying offer was the right move. I think that was really stupid. And I don't use that word lightly. I think that was a very dumb move on the Phillies' part. I think it was very short-sighted. But I digress. I think they will probably look to either fill shortstop internally with like moving Gene Segura back to short and then having Scott Kingery at second. Or I think the only like feasible option in my mind, unless they trade Gene Segura, would be Freddie Galvis. Who would be fun to see back. Yeah, that would be fun. And he also, isn't really looking at like a full-time starting position anymore. So because he's a switch hitter, that kind of helps him be more of a platoon second baseman or a shortstop, depending on, the matchups and things like that. If they trade Gene, I could definitely see them pursuing Marcus Semien or Andrelton Simmons on a 1-year deal, which would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be good
but
savvy moves.
That's an if, because they have to get that $14.5 million off the books if they want to do that. But yeah, Freddie Galvis is one of my bench bats that I would like to see them look at. And then catcher, obviously, I would love to see JT. If not JT, yikes. I mean, a lot of really good backup catchers are pretty much off the list.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention prior, the suitors at the beginning of the offseason, the Nationals are also in there. But there's a rumor floating around that they're signing Yadier Molina, and then they're also going to get Adam Wainwright along with him. That is just a rumor, baseless, but we'll see. I think that they are going to be unlikely spenders, though, anyway, so I don't think that happens. And then finally, for bench bats, I would like to see Freddie Galvis back. That would be really nice because Phillies do have a pretty severe major league ready infield situation. They only have Ronald Torreyes in AAA. That's pretty much it. Nick Maton's coming through the pipeline, and he's really great. I love Nick and Bryson Stott, obviously. But, they are short right now. So they're going to need to sign like maybe 2 or 3 more infielders to minor league deals. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
But also, I think Freddie Galvis is a great fit. And then Brad Miller is my biggest biggest name on my whole list. He'll only cost 1 to 2. He got $2 million last year. So
and how good was he last year?
Yeah, he was fine. He wasn't great, but his peripherals were really good. And that is what I'm focusing on most. So the Phillies, this is why that makes sense. The Phillies need a left field platoon with Andrew McCutchen because Andrew McCutchen has lost a step in the outfield, and having a center fielder with elite defensive skills like Jackie Bradley or Kevin Kiermaier will really aid him there. But I think against righties in particular, I would love to see Brad Miller, maybe play left field, see Kutch if they're playing an American League team, see Kutch DH or what have you. That is if we don't get the DH back. Wish we did. But Brad Miller makes so much sense because he can platoon in left field. He can play third base. He's not awful at shortstop, but he's not great. But it's a just-in-case scenario. And he can play a good second base. He can play all the points of need that the Phillies have, and he can do so on a $1.5 million deal. And I think with his peripherals, with his ability that we've seen before with a short porch in right field, he is the perfect fit for this club. And I think, honestly, that is a move that Matt Klentak was not hailed for enough. And I'm not a big Matt Klentak fan, but he did really well to get Brad Miller here. And I want him back. I want him back really bad. So that's my wish list. That's my full tangential list.
A lot of it's doable. We could see a few land. Absolutely.
I mean, that is also, that brings the Phillies down to $190 to $200 million payroll. It doesn't even max them out, which is important because I don't think they want to max out this year.
But I don't think many clubs will they?
No,
we're all in the same boat, really, aren't we?
It's silly that they won't, but it's fine. It is what it is. Pandemic baseball is weird.
It's just how we've gone from stupid money to this cost saving everywhere in 2 years. But
upsetting.
It's the pandemic, which is largely to do with it, and there's nothing nobody can do about it, unfortunately.
Nope.
Alex, I think that's the wrap. We've covered.
Is that everything?
I think that's. Have you got anything else to get off your chest still?
Wow. Do I have anything else to get off my chest? I don't think so. I mean, all of this is subject to change. If they make some big trade, say, I don't know. One of my big things I really liked that I mocked up because the Blue Jays have interest in Gene Segura apparently. Even though he does have a full no trade clause, that makes it a little bit more of a thing. But I really like the idea of swapping Randall Grichuk and Gene Segura. Randall Grichuk can play center field actually, and is good friends, I believe, with Rhys Hoskins. I think they're, or not, if not good friends, they know each other. But he's also, that is a 5-hole hitter, and the Phillies need a 5-hole hitter. They need a guy with really, really solid power. JT has power, also has swing and miss concerns.
He's a little bit underwhelming last year, JT, with the bat.
I would love to put him in the 2-hole and move Hoskins back down to the 4-5 range. but having Grichuk would be really, really cool too. That's also just such a scary lineup. If you went from like, just picture this. You went from like Kutch to JT to Harper to Hoskins to Grichuk, or switch Grichuk and Hoskins. That's like a lot of power going down the line. So that's a pretty scary 1 through 5. So I like that idea. And it's they're both owed $14.5 million. It would just be a contract swap, but Grichuk would kind of fill a hole that the Phillies need to fill. And the big issue is they will probably decline Andrew McCutchen's option next year. I think that is
35 next year.
Yeah, he's pretty old, and it's a $17.5 million option. I think that is it is all but decided that they will decline that option. And I love Kutch. I love him to death, but he's lost a step in the field. He's still producing offensively. Don't get me wrong, but he's definitely lost a step in left field, and is not exactly the guy that you'd want to have out there defensively. So I think they're definitely going to decline that option, especially given the shortstop class of next year's free agency. And so they're going to need a left fielder. The reason that I thought that George Springer would make sense, but Grichuk is the same way. They both play center field well enough that you can handle it for a year, and then they move over to left field, where they're pretty elite defenders. Grichuk has a great left field glove. Yeah. Springer doesn't play left field, but would have a really great left field glove. So that would make a lot of sense to me. And the Blue Jays are probably shopping Grichuk because they have, or, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., but he's signed to a very lucrative deal, because they want George Springer and they want to make room for him. So, they already have Lourdes Gurriel Jr. as their left fielder, Grichuk is their center fielder right now, and Teoscar Hernandez is their right fielder. And Teoscar Hernandez had a huge 2020.
Yeah, he did.
So they're not benching him anytime soon. So, and then Kevin Biggio can play the outfield too. So, there's that. They just have a wealth of outfielders that, they need to make room. And Grichuk commands the most money out of all of them and, didn't have the best 2020. So I think that move makes a lot of sense, but only if Segura is willing to be traded. Yeah. And I think it makes sense because trading Segura gets him off the payroll next year is most important because the Phillies need a shortstop, and there are 5 amazing ones coming to free agency next year. So they need to look at that.
What's Kyle Holder like? He's in the 40.
Kyle Holder. Oh yeah. I forgot about that. Yes, that is going to aid their infield depth in the minor leagues. And he might see some major league action this year, depending on what they do at shortstop. But Kyle Holder's actually was a Rule 5 pick that I did not expect them to go after. They do have a diminished major league ready infield in AAA, but I did not expect them to go for it. They did, which is great because he actually he was a first round pick in 2015, I believe. I think I'm getting that right. First round pick in 2015, has an amazing glove. We're talking about like a top tier defensive glove at shortstop. He is a true shortstop. Very, very good. But still needs a little bit of work on the bat. But a lot of scouts really liked his contact rates last year in both at alternate sites and things like that. So he could end up being a factor, especially if the defense is as good as reported. If you're getting a guy that is getting you plus 10 defensive runs saved, I mean, that's a guy that you could start at shortstop.
Yeah, you're right.
More
it was first. Sorry, cutting it. It was first round in 2015 out of San Diego.
There you go.
Holder in 408 games, he's slashing an average of .264, .317, .350 hit in the minors. He slugged 17 home runs, 136 RBIs.
Yeah, the power is definitely
decent. It's decent.
Is trending upwards a little bit, and the contact rates, like I said. But they really, really like his glove. I know that much, and I think that's a guy that you probably look at as more of a bench infielder. So it might save them, going after somebody like Freddie Galvis or depending on what they decide to do with shortstop. But I really do like that pick. I was expecting them to go for a high risk bullpen arm. They did not do that, and I'm kind of happy that they didn't because Kyle Holder is like a really decent gamble to make.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. I'm very excited that they went that route, especially given their deficit of major league ready infield talent.
And we lost no prospects as well from.
Oh no, it's a Rule 5 pick. So basically,
Yeah.
all that means is that he has to be kept on the active roster for this entire season.
Right.
Otherwise, he goes back to the Yankees.
Right. Okay. Right. I got you. Right. Okay. So yeah, that's one to watch out for in spring.
It's
Well,
a
I'm
great
sure,
stash pick. I'm happy about it.
yeah, we should see a bit of him in spring as well. See what he's
Oh,
got.
definitely. You'll definitely see some of him in spring.
Awesome, Alex. Thank you very much. Like I said, I'm
Dave,
a lot excited now that we have some direction and we have some purpose again. Let's see what we do in
I
January.
think things will start picking up a little bit more. It definitely. I mean, over the last 2 days, we're at the time of recording this. Padres traded for Blake Snell last night. They just signed. Not Ji-hwan Bae. Who am I thinking of? Shortstop, Korean shortstop. Can't remember. But they're on the verge of apparently trading for Yu Darvish. So like,
it's starting to move.
At
isn't
least
it?
the Padres are moving. I don't know about everybody else, but the Padres are moving. So we'll see.
The wheels are starting to turn. The pot's starting the stove's starting to warm up ever so slightly now.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And any big trades break or any big signings happen or any free agents, we'll get Alex back on the show and discuss it and see what other holes the Phillies need to fill. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, I hope you all had a great Christmas and have a good as can be New Year. It's going to be, again, another strange one. But 2021 is going to be better. Let's think positive. Phillies
make the playoffs. Woo!
Oh, I keep my feet on the ground here. Don't start. Don't get me on that train.
I don't know.
I'm keeping my expectations relatively low going into.
Yeah, too.
Because the division is a tough division.
It is tough.
Like
it's not tough yet.
It's not. It's gonna get when the Mets start.
It might get tough.
When the Mets get going, the Braves are going to be there. The Marlins, like if they carry on, Braves, who knows?
Braves have to get Marcell Ozuna back.
They're true.
If they don't get Marcell Ozuna back, who knows? And they have a big decision to make with Freddie Freeman. Are they gonna pay him the $30+ million that he's gonna want? Who knows?
When's that due? Is that this?
He's a free agent next year.
So no. In this, yeah. Would you?
100%.
Yeah, I'd have. He's my favorite non-Phillies player.
He's a Brave for life, and if he's not, there's a big problem. Yeah, there's a big problem.
Something's gone bad.
He is one of the most elite hitters in baseball. One of the nicest guys. Yeah. He is.
You can't hate him, can you? He's a Phillies killer. He kills us every time, but I can't hate that guy.
Can't hate him. Braves love him. I think they'd be ridiculous not to bring him back. But then, what do? Payroll's starting to get up there. Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows?
Yeah, and when your payroll's going up, fans start expecting
that rotation. Well. I don't know.
I think that's a whole different podcast.
Shout out to Braves in the UK because I don't know.
Hi, Bob.
They've got a guy coming off an ACL injury, a guy that can't get past 6 innings of work, oft injured Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson. Who knows what that's gonna be like? And Drew Smiley.
What was that about?
Yeah, I don't know.
About?
I have no idea.
I tell you what, Alex, we nearly got through a whole podcast without you.
I did it on purpose.
Getting some Braves talking.
I don't know.
Excellent. Alex, have a good New Year, buddy, and we'll talk very soon, mate.
You too, Dave.
Guys, thank you for listening. And that's all from us.